Okay, the axe hand. We did the hammer fist, so now let's talk about the axe hand. Again, one of the World War II open hand combative strikes. All the purists love it, and it's not a bad strike. I mean, like, it's a good strike and effective, especially in preemptive mode, where you want to cook off with that as a starting blow. The big thing is, in the years that I've been doing this, I've never seen anybody, once a fight actually starts and the kinetic energy training starts, you know, we're actually landing on each other and impacting. No one ever goes to an axe hand, right? You never see it. You never even see it when someone has someone framed out, bent over, and then an axe hand. It's always like a hammer fist or something else, an elbow or something. So I think that the utility of the axe hand is primarily in its ability as a fast flicking tool for preemption, okay? Again, Kelly McCann at Kembativz, KEMBATIVZ.com. You're here because you know us. Please share and like and subscribe, but let's keep going about the axe hand. So the big thing first we'll talk about is formation of your hand, okay? And there's a lot of different thoughts about this, especially from the karate realm, because they tend to use a lot of axe hands and open hand stuff. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is keep your arm and your shoulder loose so that you can whip. You want to get that whip, and we're going to talk about making power with it in a second. But on impact, you want to thrust the thumb out, keep your fingers together, and arch your hand slightly. All right, that's going to make the hand very stiff. If you don't do that, what's going to happen is your hand will cup in the center. If your hand is loose, it'll cup right there in the center, and then you have kind of a kinetic energy leak at the back of your hand. You lose some power because you're not putting that power, that kinetic energy, through a stiff object. Okay, so again, forming the hand is super important. All the body mechanics stay the same. We want to move in the direction of the strike. It's basically Dempsey drop, right? We're timing footfall with impact. Okay, so as long as you're doing that, you're getting about as much as you're going to get out of the axe hand. Always going to hip twist, always going to use our shoulders, so we're getting that motion, say, from starting position 2, right, which is this. We're actually going to generate the strike from the left side, so we'll use zigzag footwork and we'll step with the right side. Okay, think about that for a minute, right? So we're always going to go zigzag, but even though I'm right-handed, I'm stepping with my right foot, but the strike is originating from my left side. That's why I'm stepping on my right foot. So again, I'd have a slight shrug or a turn away, kind of like a shoulder roll kind of motion, right? And after that, what's going to happen is I'm going to step in the direction of the strike, and I'm going to open up my hip and my shoulder and whip that arm, just like I'm trying to cut someone's head off. And what's my target? My target's the vagus nerve, the side of the neck, anything like that. We can show it on Bob. If you look at Bob's physique and you see this right here, as I do this from the rear, you'll see that what I'm trying to impact is right here on the side, right? The brachial plexus region, the vagus nerve, etc., the mandibular angle, behind the ear, all of that. Make sure that you don't target too shallow. In other words, you don't want to like say, okay, I want my hand to be exactly placed on the vagus nerve, because then if Bob were animate and he could fucking do that shit, he might pull back, right? I might be slow, I might be nervous, I might be, have a little anxiety going on. I might show a little bit too much, and he might pull back. If he does that, I've missed, right? If I planned my hand to hit that, then I've missed, and I want to do that. So I'm just going to kind of throw my whole forearm up there, and if my forearm hits, great. You know, if down here between midpoint forearm and wrist hits, great. If I only do get him with my hand, that's great too. You know, but at least I'm going to land something, okay? And like I said, from starting position number 2, you can do this. The arm you're going to throw with is on top, and I'm just kind of like addressing the problem, and then all I'm going to do is get a slight chamber and then step in the direction of the strike. And I'm going to try to cut Bob's head right off his shoulder, okay? Now, you don't want to throw these shallow, and you don't want to make a circle. Like people do that with left hooks in boxing all the time. They practice, and they do this, right? So the punch only is right there at the deepest part of the strike at one point. You don't want to do that. You want to look at the shoulder line, and you want to send the power through the shoulder line, all right? So you want to adjust. If he flanked me a little bit and did something like this, and his shoulders, you know, turn, then I'm going to send a little bit more of it back to my right-hand side. I'm going to come here, and I'm going to send it there right along his shoulder line, okay? So that's your basic axe hand. It can also be done by starting position number 1, where your hands are folded across your crotch, and I'm kind of talking to him. This one comes below the line of vision. This was a favorite in the GHCA. Bob Casper loved this strike because it did originate from below the line of vision. And again, I'm going to kind of stomp into it to remind me, okay, I'm going in that direction. Okay. Okay. Again, there is a windup. You can see it. But it's also kind of a good strike to flick at someone. Okay. John Kerry from American Combatives used to use a flick to the front of the throat, to the windpipe or the trachea. You won't get as much power out of this as you will from like a full-on wham axe hand like that, but it is effective to get someone to have to adjust their speaking and their breathing. They'll you get hit right on the trachea. That's not insignificant. You can do that to the point where you have an involuntary larynx closure. That's why you wear neck protection when you use simunition, because a strike to the throat like that can cause a spasm that basically closes it, okay? But what John used to teach is to come in, and he would go head down. Remember, John was not a sighted fighter. He was blind. He had no eyes. So he needed to touch you. He wanted to attach to you. So what John would do is he'd come in, and on the way in, he would put his head down, and he would come in and check. So he'd check an arm, and basically get onto you. Then he could feel what was going on. Oddly, a lot of the students mimicked his performance because he was their instructor, so they also would kind of negate that they were sighted, all right, which is kind of odd, but I understand because they're doing what their instructor tells them to do. So again, that one is just, I'm coming in, I adapt that from that hard World War II style like that, okay, to just a flick. So all I'm doing is, I'm sending it up into the trachea or lifting into the underneath the shelf of the chin. Not a bad strike, and not a bad way to get a guy to clutch his own throat like this, right? Because it's a very surprising shot. And then I'll cover like one last use of the axe hand, and that is the old judo chop, right? Which originates kind of high but comes down onto the surface that you're interested in striking, right? So this could be the brachial plexus region, the vagus nerve, the trapezius muscle, anywhere in here. Some people say you should hit people in the collarbone with that. I highly suggest you don't, because you probably break your hands, not the fucking collarbone, because there's more soft tissue here than this bony structure. If you're a real big dude, I have no doubt, like if Matt Peller or some of the other guys that we've got training here hit you like that they could dislocate or break your collarbone. I'm not going to do it, right? My light ass just doesn't have the ass to do it. So you want to make sure that you target the right stuff. But basically that strike comes down just like a hack is the best way to describe it, right? I'm gonna hack down right into that nerve, and then using the principle from PPCT, right, where I'm gonna dwell on the target a little bit longer. What that does is it knocks the blood flow away from the nerves. The striking surface of the hand goes a little bit deeper. It's not allowed to be insulated because the blood won't rush back in and help the nerve recover, so it has way more impact. Bruce Siddle came out with that in the mid-'80s, early '80s. Used it on the ankle kick, used it on a lot of his strikes. There was just a little bit of a dwell time once you hit. So again, that strike, all I'm gonna do is use my hip, my knee, and I'm just gonna hack down onto the neck area. Okay, now I'm not telling you to do this and then say like, hey, this is the way to do it. I'm saying it's a tool. What we find is the more that you train in any specific thing, that's more likely what you're gonna do. So if you're training in Muay Thai or you're training in boxing or MMA, then because you're frequent in the gym and you're doing it 5 days a week and you're training like that, that's probably what you're gonna go to. These are just tools that you can use to break and run. You can hit somebody with that and then break and run, right? You can use that as an effective tool as a fight bender. If you have the ergonomics to do it, we use it a lot on entry to attachment. So in other words, if I'm coming entry, right, like some strike comes in, I block that, right from there, throw the axe hand to a frame, right? So it's actually like a violent frame, which is, an MMA principle, right? So the frame would be here, okay, so I've got my arm, right? The bony structure of my arms here can't be collapsed so I can hold him out, but the way that I put it there was actually like an axe hand. I'll cover one last thing on the axe hand and make it most effective, and that's wiping it on. So in 101 Combatives, yeah, it's like an old black and white movie with Frank Sinatra in Manchurian Candidate going, judo chopping the fuck out of people. However, there's a better way to do it. And that way to do it is to wipe it on, all right? So if you look at an axe hand that originates from the left side of my body and travels across, what you'll see is the back of my hand will actually start coming at you, almost like I was gonna back slap you, backhand you like you used to get backhanded by your parents in the backseat of your fucking car, didn't you? So same thing. The old man would reach back, you know, he'd be driving around. You go, you son. Okay, same thing. All right, the back of my hand is coming like this, but then what's going to happen is the leading edge of my hand wipes into the strike. Okay, so as it comes in, the backhand's coming in like this. You turn it over and wipe it in, and then the thumb gets thrust forward. Your fingers are arched. Your hand is stiff, and it's a lot more effective. We do that with virtually anything that we're doing with our hands. We're going to wipe on, whether it's a block, blade block, or anything like that. We're using that motion of our hand to get just that much more penetration into the soft tissue, into the nerves and all that. So there's a little spiel about the axe hand. Again, catalog that with the, you know, the hammer fist. I'm going to do one on face smash and all the old World War II strikes, which again, we're not impugning. We like them under certain circumstances. However, in the length of time, like I said, we've been doing this, we don't normally see those strikes being used at all against people who are fighting back, not against a compliant fucking meat puppet. And if you've noticed, we don't do meat puppeting anymore, right? We've stopped that about a decade ago or 12 years ago, only because it doesn't make any sense. And as I look around the community, I'm still seeing people use meat puppets that basically are scarecrowing out, and then the person gets to do whatever they want to them. That's not realistic. Let's fight people who fight back, all right? That's how you get better. So for now, remember, Kembativz, Kembativz.com. Subscribe to this channel, like the content, share it. We'll see you soon.